Thank you, Ryan, and welcome everyone to that last day of the virtual M365 conference. And today's keynote is with my friend Dan Holme, and I'm the luckiest guy in the world to get to chat with a buddy of mine for an hour. Welcome, friend.
Thanks so much. Maybe you're the second most lucky. I'm really happy to have a chance to chat with you again, Richard.
We don't get an hour to just talk to each other. I mean, usually we're in a meeting, interact some things. You know, we've known each other long enough that you and I tend to just agree on stuff and then just move on and everybody's a little flabbergasted.
That's great to have a chance to see you. I think I might go for a more serious look here so that I can actually see you clearly during the presentation. But,
yeah, I don't know about the lenses in those other glasses, friend.
They're not corrective, let's put it that way.
and I had some fun with my background today. Caruana had this phenomenal background for yesterday's keynote, and it just made me think I got to play with some stuff. But this Hubble picture is one of my favorites. So, you know, and we're thinking about the holiday season. This is when you avoid in-laws. So this is my solution.
Yeah, and for those folks who might have seen or missed Caruana's session yesterday we announced a number of holiday-themed teams backgrounds, and if you follow me on @DanHolme at Twitter, I just posted a link to those backgrounds so you can get them for yourselves as well.
I'm always fascinated that a lot of Teams folks, Caruana, and you for this matter, you come from the SharePoint community as well. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I know what the relationship is there, but it does seem to be a pattern.
Yeah, it's a great evolution story. You know, people joke that Teams is the best SharePoint client ever, but there's a hint of truth to that. People spent many years collaborating with SharePoint team sites, sharing files, building intranets, managing content, building applications. But it always required you to go to a website, go to your browser, go to a website, find that. And then you'd have to go to, let's say, your inbox and find the conversations that you were having about your work. And then you'd have to, you know, jump onto Skype and IM people. And what has obviously happened over the years is these capabilities have come together. And I think it's actually really amazing and couldn't have come at a better time that people now can go to one place, which is their team, and all the tools are there. So you're in the context of your work. You can get in that flow. And you're not having to go to tool A and find your work and tool B and find your work and tool C and find your work. Instead, you're in your work and the tools are there. Chat files, data, whatever you need. And so
maybe that's the common thread with SharePoint, folks, is that you were always trying to construct that perfect portal, that first view into your workday that wasn't your inbox.
Right. Right.
And Teams seems to have the energy, and certainly these past 9 months or so have been the time when we've been looking for the focus point. Where do we look? And to get people out of the inbox and into the team room, I think it's very compelling.
Yeah, and you know, of course, the last 9 months of people working remotely meant people had to have a great solution for meetings and virtual events, and Teams is obviously that. And so it really has cemented Teams' role in working together, but also helped a number of people understand that Teams is actually more than just chat and meetings. It is a hub for teamwork, and all of the superpowers of SharePoint come to it. Even portals. We announced the Home site app coming to Teams in the next couple of months that will bring that intranet company-wide view of your world into Teams. We've brought Yammer into Teams with the Communities app. You know, people are now seeing, oh, this is really truly a hub. It can be a place that I stay all day and bounce between my work groups, check in on what's happening with the company, make sure that I'm taking time to carve out time to breathe and focus and learn. It's pretty exciting.
Can we dig into the Yammer part? Because I also think there's some folks that thought that Teams and Yammer were kind of competitive. Like, how do they play together?
Yeah, that is a very common misconception, and is really something for people to understand, because it's going to become more and more important over the coming months. That it's Teams and Yammer as apps have in the past served fairly different roles. Teams has been focused on that work group collaboration and getting work done, staying connected, moving process forward. And then Yammer has been where you go to connect with people outside of your work group, to connect with people across the organization, whether it's your leadership with company-wide events and understanding culture and what's happening, whether it's to share knowledge across teams, or whether it's just to be an employee and connect with people who share your interests or your background. And what we've done over the past 5 months, which has been really important, is we've taken the first step to bringing the superpower of Yammer, which is communities, into Teams with the new Communities app. So now everyone has access to the Communities app in Teams, which is a full fidelity version of Yammer. If you're a Teams customer, add the Communities app and you literally may decide you don't ever need to go to the standalone web app anymore.
Now, when you talk about communities, you're talking about external to the company as well as internal, or these internal communities?
Yeah, communities, generally we're talking about communities inside the company to share knowledge and communicate broadly, but communities can include external users. Now with Azure B2B, we have companies that are connecting across partner organizations. We at Microsoft have some customer engagement communities where our Yammer team, for example, has a very large and active community of Yammer customers that we support directly. So this idea of external communities is a powerful one that a lot of our companies haven't taken advantage of yet.
Yeah, and just that interplay of how do I identify an external? What are the barrier, the lines that this is an internal conversation versus an external conversation, and making all of that very clear. Like in some ways, I appreciate that when we want to have those external conversations, we want feedback from customers. I almost want it to be a different tool so that people are very clear when you see stuff coming from there, that's from the outside world. That's just not our internal conversation. So less NDA mistakes, more put on a professional face for your customer, like that kind of context. So, but I think I do want to be able to take feedback from my customer and put it into a conversation inside of our group, right? Like evidence wins the day. It's like, this is a real customer who spent real money with us and they have a problem with. Let's talk about that. Like all of that's powerful as long as I have the lines clear.
Yeah, and that's actually a great example. There's a small but I think very powerful feature. Oh, sorry, I just got a notification. Let me turn off my desktop notifications here.
Yeah, you've got a keynote. That's your notification.
I know. Don't people know?
or is that your notice to be at your keynote? I don't know which.
There's a relatively specific feature that is designed exactly to do that, and it's a feature that when you add a community to a channel, so basically you've got your channel doing the work stream that you're involved with, and you add a community tab to it, that basically is the front door to your channel. It's where you can engage with people outside of your team. And there's actually in that tab experience a function that says, hey, let's take this conversation from the community and let's bring it into the channel chat. So we can maybe iterate on what's the best response to this and get our act together before we go back to the community and look like we always have our act together.
Well, you have that deeper think about something, like they've really pressed against something important, or as is often the case, we have been having this debate and now we have external references for this debate too, to say what this context is. And I hate to get into the weeds here, Dan, but I do think it's important that what is the level of identity of that external? Because I generally want authenticated identities, like I know who that person is. It's not just anonymous, but I also want a low barrier of entry for folks that are outside of my organization to be able to give us feedback. So I don't know if there's options to balance that, because the B2C interfaces are not trivial. Like it takes some steps to make an account. Yeah.
Nothing in Yammer is, for example, or even Teams for that matter, is designed to support anonymous interaction. Everything is authenticated, so you do know who people are, and that is an important capability. And your organization therefore has the ability to set up trust boundaries of who are we going to let in from the outside world. Are we going to trust everyone at partner A and nobody at competitor B? There's a number of governance controls in there for that.
Right. And I also see this, a side of this is you do end up with those external influencers too, right? That you want to maybe a little further underneath the skirts a bit, that the place where you might share a little, hey, here's what's coming in our roadmap. We want to know these things.
Yeah, and we do that several ways at Microsoft. We have certain communities where we share information with, let's call them external trusted stakeholders. And then we also have, there's certain places where we have teams where we bring those people in. And that's one of the joy where they're really part of the, the work that's happening. And that's one of the beauty of these tools and the variety of ways you can put them together is that.
And I'm grateful for that granularity, right? Like bringing a trusted customer in for a beta of a new product line, like to help you validate what you're doing in your next, so they can be part of your rollout, right? Those are the things that make products successful, and to have tools to make it easy to have that relationship, I think, is really valuable.
Yeah, and we've been focusing a lot, obviously, for the last 30 years on creating tools that help these kinds of productivity situations. And it's been interesting over the last year that what we're seeing is customers are really expressing the pain that their employees are feeling working from home, working disconnected from each other. And that includes things like just like feeling connected, feeling cared for, the various physical and mental health and family stresses that people are having to deal with today has been heard loud and clear by a lot of our customers. So the tone of what they're asking for has really changed this year. And they're saying, yes, these tools are important and please keep innovating in them, and we will. But also, what can we do to drive employee well-being? What can we do to help people connect in ways that they used to in a physical campus, like where you would walk down the hall and hear a conversation and say, oh, I know something about that, or that's something I want to know more about. Those serendipitous and relationship building connections that people have really been strained this year. We figured out how to do meetings, but we haven't really figured out how to do culture.
Well, we do tend to end up in these different bubbles, right? I mean, whether it's the customer relationship or it's the employee relationships, they're all the same thing. It's almost like the team boundary's too strong. You only hear from your team and your immediate work. We've kind of lost the hallway effect. The power of overhearing a conversation. I love both of
those phrases. The hallway effect and the team is too strong. I love that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that it's a byproduct of the tooling focused on the immediate problem and not that broader sense of the community that is our office. What happens in the lunchroom? What happens at the water cooler? What happens in the hallway? I don't know how we make a digital version of that. I think it's a very interesting question.
Yeah, it is. And in Azure, there's a lot of discussion of digital twins, right? Having a digital twin of everything that's related to the way you do business. And people are effectively asking for that now. What's the digital twin of the office, the hallway, the conference room, the water cooler, the lobby? And the good news is we're helping customers in a lot of ways build those with the tools they already own in M365. So with Teams as the hub and as where you work, and the superpowers of SharePoint sort of create experiences that bring together the content and the resources someone might need in one of those places. And very importantly, with conversations, Yammer conversations, for example, connecting people who otherwise wouldn't run into each other. We're finding some pretty good success with some amazing customers who've moved very quickly to try to create a digital twin of their employee experience effectively with these tools, and it's been really gratifying to see how much weight they put into that effort. It's important to them to help their people feel connected and empowered to really be their best, not just do their best.
I mean, there's also, I almost think there's like an etiquette question here. Like there's a formality to the Friday afternoon review meeting, right? Or even the Monday morning scrum, whatever those things may be. But when do you know that you're in an informal meeting? When it is time to, relax a little, chill, have those more generalized conversations, the kind of thing that would show up at a water cooler conversation. They talk about the game on Saturday, like that kind of stuff, because it's still the same tool. So, my instinct is I put the button-up shirt on when I turn on the camera, but I'd like to know when's the right time to have those less formal conversations.
Yeah, and I heard a bit of your conversation with Caruana yesterday, and she was talking about how the first, I think, 10 minutes of her meetings are intentionally unstructured. And on my team, sorry, my dog is deciding to pick up a squeaky toy right now.
Of course.
On my team, we have a daily, what we call stand-in cam, and it is a 15-minute meeting that is optional. and that the goal of which is just simply to connect as people. There's rarely an agenda. The name of the meeting is specifically about stand up, stop sitting at your desk and turn on your camera so we can see each other. Yeah. And we do exactly what you talked about. We connect as human beings and share what's going on. And then usually there's, a little bit of, oh, hey, can you stay on after? I've got something I need to chat with you about. Sure. But it's been for us and my team, that's one of the key ways that we've survived this time where we're not able to just shout out, hey, Bill, what's going on? What's the latest there?
Back in the old days of using IRC and those kinds of technologies, I remember giving accounts to executives, read-only accounts, to watch a deployment of a product that we were struggling with. And we were using RC. We were remote, right? Just having the chat was useful, but it also became a really great log of how we solved the problem and so forth. But giving people the ability to witness that process, it's like, hey, your job's hard. Like, there's so much of the work that we do, especially in technology, that's somehow invisible. That's just like, and then magic happens and everything works. And you missed that part where it was 18 hours on a Saturday. I love this concept of the wellness that comes from people being able to view into other teams' certain moments. Again, maybe only in a viewing mode, but just like, hey, we're going to do a product review. Would you like to see it?
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. This idea of working in the open and providing that visibility is to me, one of the most powerful effects that technology can have on work, because to your point, it sort of lets people see what each other are doing, which generates empathy. And that's one of the key ways that you can move an organization forward, is when you feel for and can understand what your fellow employees are doing. And for a decade and a half, that's really one of the superpowers that Yammer had, was working in the open. And that was sort of across the organization. Now we've got teams where you're doing work and having chats and channels so everyone on the team can see what you're doing. And this approach is I've seen do amazing things for customers. Sure. The challenge is it's a cultural shift. Customers have to, in addition to want to build that kind of empathy and openness, they have to trust that it will work. And
I think we talked about this open mindset as an ethical thing for years. Yeah. But I think the pandemic brought it to us, and it's also a wellness thing. Oh yeah. That the sense that there's other work going on, the sense that there's other things to empathize with, actually makes us healthier. We are all struggling, and we are also still able to make things, that we are making progress as well. Like, the combination of those two truths makes us more comfortable with the state, with where we're feeling. Wellness is also feeling you are in that community.
Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, we have one of my peers, one of the directors on the team's marketing team, who is literally working from his attic now. he's been pushed up by his kids who have to do remote school, and his spouse who has to work. And we all joke every time we hop on a meeting together that he's been banished to the attic. But just that kind of thing, or having someone's kid come in the middle of the meeting, or a pet turn on a squeaky toy.
Squeaky toys, yeah.
It reminds us we're all human and we're all fighting these things together. And you're right, that does, in a very real way, drive a sense of connectedness and wellness.
Yeah. The byproduct of this pandemic, of everyone worked from home, is suddenly we were all in everyone's homes. Yes. So you sort of get this balance of privacy and intimacy as well. And I think the deformalizing a lot of conversation, that we accept kids and pets and things, and heck, even celebrate them, became an important part of normalizing that we were in each other's homes. I think we've sort of gone through a wave that was a novelty in the spring, and we got a little more formal, it seems, through the summer and the fall. And it kind of coming into the holiday season, we seem to be relaxing again and having a bit more fun with this. And not just being patient with each other, but also it's like, hey, it's a thing to celebrate. We're still doing it.
Exactly. People can do fun things on meetings now, or put on their holiday backgrounds or their amazing Hubble telescope backgrounds. It's one more way that people can express themselves as people. And
sure,
it's been an interesting trend, as disconnected as we've been this year, to see new ways that people are connecting, and that core human need to be social and to feel connected is expressing itself in really some magical ways this year. And I hope that as we start returning to somewhere in the middle, is forward with us.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what the rebalancing will look like by this time next year. I mean, I'm hoping we do another show like this and we get to do another keynote. And I'd love to recap with you. It's just like, well, it's a year later and the vaccine's around, and now we're making choices about what these work models look like and how we're going to balance those things. Because I think it's very interesting. I do feel like the etiquette question, like etiquette is a permanent change. You don't really shift that again. We see different things. I don't know if you think about it this way, but I'm become very aware of this idea of asking for synchronous communication. You do have to ask. You don't demand synchronous communication. I have to make an appointment for a meeting with you. I don't just call you anymore. But the perception of me calling you without a plan is kind of rude. I mean, really, what is the statement? It says whatever you're doing is not as important as what I want to do right now.
Yeah, exactly. And the etiquette around that, I think a lot of the etiquette we bring to that comes from our lives on mobile phones these days, where you just don't call someone, you text and say, hey, can I call you? Or you just text. And the point being that the text is the asynchronous communication. Like my thinking here is around Teams and all this new tooling is it's gotten a lot easier to do incidental asynchronous communication. Mm-hmm. Not demand someone's immediate attention, but when their attention is available, could you help me with? Exactly. Kinds of things. So the tooling has allowed for a new etiquette. Yes, for sure.
You know, once upon a time, it was only a phone call, and it was inherently interrupting and synchronous, whether you wanted it to be or not. It didn't work any other way.
And also, I'm old enough to remember walking to another room with the phone and letting the cord stretch across the room and closing the door on the cord so I could have some privacy. I remember those times.
Yeah, but also the phone call was exciting. We're set these days, way more dreaded. The phone is ringing, and I don't have anything in my calendar. Nothing good can come of answering that.
That's so true.
And every time I do answer it, now I'm sad. I should not have answered this. Oh my goodness. This sort of order of events of how our technology has evolved and how we're relating it to the way employees work. Definitely, it's one thing. All you really how do you make something a water cooler room, like for informality? Is it just text like that? It seems to me it's all about the etiquette.
It's all about
the etiquette. Of that informal room. Yeah,
exactly. And for those folks who I noticed a couple of folks in the chat were saying that they're working with some of Microsoft's tools to achieve these kinds of things as well. But just for those who are listening and looking for a little bit of guidance, this concept of recreating the hallway effect, as Richard said, the water cooler effect, those serendipitous and intentional connections of people beyond your work group. That is definitely the role that Yammer has played in Microsoft 365, and I can't encourage you enough to go and install the Communities app in Teams and deploy it to your organization. If you're a Teams admin, you can do it in about 5 minutes, and take advantage of things like the all company community to share company-wide communications and news and host live events. Take advantage of a space for people to share stories about working from home, share stories of their pets. It's interesting as we look across customers, often one of the most popular non-work related communities is pets from home. That is probably the most common non-work related community. People love seeing pictures of each other's pets.
Well, and it's what a common bond. There's nothing, there's never anything bad about a pet, right? And you can inherently trust that. But I do actually do a talk on building trust in teams, and one of the things we discuss is that fundamentally building trust is shared values, and caring for an animal in your home is such a shared value. When you're in front of pets, it's hard to argue with that we have dogs and cats and parrots and whatever animal works for you. My old dog's under my desk too. It's just that he's snoring, and so far my microphone has resisted it. So, yeah, pretty funny. But this does bring to this other context of wellness of how you build trust in your team. If it does feel to me like this past year has been a strain on trust in a lot of respects. We've leaned on trust, and there's only so many moments to grow it too. So I do think it's challenging through technology to actually say, is this a point at which we strengthen trust?
Yeah, for sure. And we've talked a lot about how just connecting people can drive wellness, but I also think it's critical to talk about things like things like using insights to understand when it's time to focus and when it's time to take a breath. I remember when I got my Apple Watch, I was relatively late on the train with Apple Watches. The Magic Delighter feature for me was the first time the breathe prompt came up and said, hey, you should stop and take a breath. I was like, what in the world is that? I had no idea the watch had that function. And I did it. And I was like, wow, that was really nice. Yeah. And back at Ignite, we announced that we're going to be integrating personal insights into Teams so that as you're working in Teams, you can actually take a moment and for your own personal well-being. We'll have integration with apps like Headspace that provide an opportunity to just disconnect, take a quick meditation, or the virtual commute feature where what we see and hear from customers is now my commute is 15 seconds, right?
Right.
And that's not enough time to disconnect from work so that you can be your best self for your family and those people who need you. And so we're bringing a feature that literally steps you through closing out your tasks for the day, maybe pushing some things to tomorrow.
Kind of unwind. You know what? I really appreciate externalizing that, Dan. Like, I should be doing this anyway.
Yes.
But when a tool prompts me to take a break or, go take a walk, let's wind down and so forth, it kind of takes the responsibility off me too. Like, it dissuades my own guilt that I'm indulging myself. No, tool's telling me, there's a little less pressure on me for doing all the right things. I'm just following instructions.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I hadn't thought about the guilt thing, but that sort of relates to you have permission, right? And it's not, and if this is in the context of work, it's literally your company giving you permission to stop and take a breath, saying it is actually important. We know from brain science that if you take a 5-minute break every 90 minutes, you're much more productive. And yet I certainly, and you are type A personalities where I'll just work for 12 hours straight, even though that's not really healthy.
No, so I had to stop wearing contacts at my computer because I blinked so little, the contacts dried out and fell out of my eye.
Oh, wow.
It's just, I'm a little too focused for my own good.
So we need a blink app for you, huh?
Something like that. But, the big thing has been, the caffeinated beverage is when the teacup is empty, you have to make tea upstairs. So you get up and go get another one. I started having to drink green tea because if you drink tea all day long, eventually your kidneys will pack it in. but it was a point of getting up a flight of stairs, 10 flights a day just from tea, and almost natural pomodoros, that every 30 minutes or so the cup is empty and you get up and move. And there's something magical about walking out of the room. Like our brains are wired for that reference change. You're almost forced to think differently every time you transition a room.
Yeah, totally.
And it's definitely, we think about these past 9 months, the number of people who've put together a workspace so that it is a separation from life space.
Right. Yeah, I feel lucky to have an office that I can use and it can be quiet. I've got a little mat that I can stretch out and do a little stretching during a meeting. And obviously not everyone has the benefit of having that space. And for those folks who are sharing a kitchen table with their kindergartners who are trying to Zoom to their teacher, it's a tough time right now. So
it's very tough.
Please, I hope for everyone who's out there struggling with these kinds of challenges, be good to yourself so that you can be good for your family and take the breaks you can to collect yourself and focus and bring your best self to your family as well as to your work.
I had a request on a one-on-one. They said, do you mind if I have my camera off? I'm going to walk my dog while we're talking. And I thought that is such a good idea. I'm going to walk my dog too. And we then committed to, hey, when we do our meetings, we do them on our phones outdoors.
Nice.
walking the dog, essentially. So that we're still doing the work we need to do. We're benefiting ourselves. We're benefiting our animals. But an interesting piece of etiquette, just this conversation of, I want to have my meeting with you in a different context.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, my parallel story to that is Outlook now has a feature called Play My Email, which is designed so that when you're in your car, you can listen to and respond to email. I call it treadmill mode or dog walking mode, because I will do one of those two things and just play my email and catch up on a bunch of email while I'm walking, and it's just such a more healthy way to do it than staring at my inbox. Yeah.
I mentioned this on yesterday's keynote as well, Caruana, and I'm looking at one of the chat messages about the virtual coffee break. I also like the etiquette of always have an agenda for a meeting, even if that agenda is no agenda. It's I am off to get a caffeinated beverage. Why don't you get one too? And let's not have a plan, just chat for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how large that scales, like an entire team doing that. Sort of the virtual stand-up model, I guess it works as well. But definitely that was very much a camera on thing, drinking tea and what's important to you kind of conversations.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating to see the ways people are trying to improve their work and their let's call it their core team and their broader employee experience right now. It's an inspiring time to see how people are fighting and achieving right now.
But also places where we are able to be vulnerable with each other. Right, that it's not just about the work, that it is how are you actually doing, what are you struggling with, what can I lift off your shoulders, if at all possible.
Yeah,
and again, permission to have those conversations and permission to ask for time when necessary.
Yeah, at Microsoft, we just actually formalized what we call our well-being principles. And those are principles that are designed to ensure that we can bring our best to work and be our best at work, which include things like embracing imperfection, deciding that not everything you need to do needs to be perfect. There are some things that do, but there's also things that are quote unquote pass fail, that you can get done without killing yourself and your team. Being able to say no to the right things. And really having that time to be well.
Yeah, and it's much easier to do your best work on the important things when you can set a lower bar on less important things.
Yes.
Right. That not everything has to be skipping over a level of perfection all of the time.
Yep.
But it certainly it was funny how our schedules sort of shuffled in these past few months, because ultimately I'm seeing like a tremendous amount of work getting done, but we definitely moved times around, and it depended on what your life is like. Little kids require different attention at different times, but people work at different schedules. I was very appreciative of a footer on an email that says, I work at odd hours. You don't have to. You're not required to reply to my email just because it arrived in the middle of the night. Work on your hours too.
Yep, I'm seeing a lot of that too, for sure. People either because of family obligations or because of just where they geographically are located, being a lot more tolerant about, let's call it, just asynchronous communication. And we have people who are getting better about sort of setting their out of office message and saying, I am out, right now for 3 hours taking care of my kids, being clear about that. Many of us at Microsoft, when we send messages, we use the delay delivery option. So if I'm writing a message at 9 p.m. at night, it doesn't land in someone's phone right as they're getting to bed and feel like they have to respond.
Right.
Instead, delay delivery till 7 a.m. Or just setting really clear expectations, which I do with my team, which is I may email you on a Friday night or a Saturday morning, but unless I tell you it's critical, I'll text you if it's critical. You can just hold it.
I think you're talking about, this is a shift in culture. Email is an asynchronous product. The fact that we've started using this as a synchronous product, in the past decades, there are better places for synchronous communications now. Email was always an asynchronous product. It really should go back to being that, I think, anyway. The fact that we demand synchronous behavior from email is flawed. It isn't guaranteed delivery in a given time. And there is all of these problems. If you really want synchronous communications, don't be a coward about it. Use synchronous medium.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So it depends on the culture of the team and the organization, though. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of it is the pandemic simply laid bare that all of these things are important, that we all have a culture, whether we know it or not. How intentional is our culture?
That is, yes, that is so it. And every team that works together generally does it unintentionally and just sort of works the way that each individual is used to working, as opposed to saying, how do we want to be? How do we want to? What are our values? Even as a small work group, what are the ways we're going to express those values? How are we going to collaborate together and make sure people feel included? One of the MVPs in our space, Susan Hanley, talks about a collaboration contract, and the idea of being, just when you start a new team, take the first meeting to actually talk about how you're going to work together, not what the work is, but how you're going to work together.
Yeah, and part of that is, how do you like to work? That just going around the room is like, what do you like on your pizza? What do you like for breakfast? Like, just to understand the diversity you have in your team in the first place, is interesting all by itself. But again, I think that the side effect of this year is we've put so much pressure on these things that all of these incidental or serendipitous cultures, it's not enough. That now we really do need to talk about it. Yeah, and to take it intentionally and say, there are clearly things we like because we have been working together for some period of time. What are the things we could improve?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these are just defining moments, right? It's like, this is where it's always character is what shows in times of crisis, right? It's not that you make character then, it's that's when it is revealed. And so, we've had a lot of revelations over the past.
This year has been nothing if not revelatory.
Yeah. But I'm grateful for tooling that makes it easy for us to do the right thing, to make it easier to say, hey, it's better if you really need my attention right now to poke me here. I find I'm having that conversation more often with old friends of mine. It's like, where is your preferred instant message communication? Because I have to use them all. It's the nature of what I do. So if you're happier with me poking you, in Teams versus WhatsApp, like, just tell me. I'll do it. I'm happy to. But once upon a time, we wouldn't bother with that conversation. I just think it's more important now because attention is so valuable, and we are stressed the way we are.
Yeah, and someone just posted in the chat that they see the shift to remote working as a gift that hopefully will help people regain the value of perspective for their families and kids and extended families versus just their job. I like to think that 2020 will be foresight, actually, for us. It will give us the ability to look ahead and say, how do we want to craft our lives and our work lives and our work experience?
Well, I think we tore the illusion of the facade off of a lot of our work life, because you did see folks that need to take care of kids, and folks that still have roommates, and folks that live on their own, and their different lifestyles and their different work styles. And again, the empathy between each of those things. And you've got little kids, so you run at a fairly high interruption factor. If I really want to collaborate with you, it's going to be after 8 o'clock at night. I get that, right? Like, once it's like, in the end, what I was after was great results, right? Was some kindness and great results together. And all that takes is, I'm going to shuffle some things around so we can do this 8 o'clock when your kids are in bed. Done. Right? Easy to do. Just needed to know. Weird conversation to have, except for the past 6 months.
Sure. For sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sue Hanley. She did some great shows with me on Run As, and a very great thinker about the approach to how do we collaborate. Just doing that sort of upfront. I want us to succeed. I'm keen to do all these things. These are the values that I have. How can I help?
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, I know we're running out of time, so I'm curious, if there are any questions from the crowd, and we're happy to answer questions in this space or on anything else as well. B, as we're heading out of time and people may have to drop, I really want to reiterate first and foremost how grateful I am to all of you in our community and our customers and our partners on the Microsoft team who have just been so amazing to each other and so supportive to each other this year. So many folks in our broader community have had such challenges. Very few people haven't had any, and it just is ridiculously gratifying and inspiring to watch those around us. So from me to all of you as we head into the holidays, thank you. Let's hope that we get 2020 in hindsight and that it provides foresight for us moving forward. I know in the Microsoft space, we're super excited about what we have to share with you in the next couple of months, and we will definitely be bringing these kinds of conversations into the experiences you have with Microsoft in the very near future.
Well, thank you, Dan, and thanks to everyone who's been watching. I hope you have a great rest of the virtual conference, and we look forward to bringing you more things like this.
Thanks, Richard, so much for including me. Really appreciate it. And by the way, shout out to Ryan and Galen and Joel. Oh my gosh, you guys are doing yeoman's duty. Thank you so much for this running this conference. You're incredible.
It takes a lot of people to do magic like this.
Yeah, and so we can take I guess there's some questions coming in. We can answer. Yes, Steve, I do miss setting up the Olympics a lot. In fact, watching the Olympics from South Korea was wonderful but somewhat painful because I knew what all my friends were experiencing there, and it's something I miss. If there was an opportunity for me to join in as Tokyo or Beijing come right around the corner, I would love to.
Yeah, well, pushed out to 2021, you might have a shot at it if you want to be involved. Right? I mean, working with some folks who all had to redo everything because of the push, so it'll be exciting. And then to have no time to go straight into 2022 like that, shifting gears is not a trivial thing.
Yeah. Well, someone saying the ability to have a conversation with a manager or employer about work venue has been positive in a rough situation. Yeah, it's whether it's the challenges of just working from finding some place where you can work safely and productively, or just where you work. I think some of my followers know that I'm in Phoenix, Arizona right now. We came here to get closer to some of our family and to take advantage of weather that's slightly better than up in Seattle. And it was a decision we had to make for our health, and it's been a great decision. And my management was super supportive of that.
I like walking in the misty forests of the Pacific Northwest, but I grew up here too. It's a normal part of my thinking. And the idea that I would just immediately run outside for an hour, interrupting whatever, because it's the 1 hour of sunlight, we do that here. Take the meeting outside, the sun appeared. It doesn't happen often right now.
Well, thank you all so much. Washington, D.C. as well. Yeah. All right. Well, wonderful to see you, Richard. Once again, thank you, Ryan and Galen. Best wishes to Joel, and talk to you all really soon.
See you again.
Bye.